Welcome to the award-winning Superhuman Academy podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to give you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
Hey, listen up and don't skip over this. Before we get started, I want to let you know that I am giving away completely free copies of my latest best-selling book, The Only Skill That Matters. This book is going to teach you how to upgrade your memory, read faster, learn more, and conquer your dreams. And it contains all new content written for 2020. Now again, I am giving away completely free copies of this book. All you need to do is pay shipping and handling. So to pick up your free copy as a listener of this podcast, visit freelearningbook.com. That's freelearningbook.com. Greetings, super amigos, and welcome to this week's show, where we are joined by Noah St. John, author of 15 books, including the new book, Power Habits, The New Science for Making Success Automatic. Noah is known as the Power Habits mentor, and he's famous for helping people get rid of their so-called head trash to make more money and have more satisfaction in life. He's also the only author in history to have works published by Hay House, HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, Mindvalley, Nightingale-Conant, and the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher. He appears frequently on the news worldwide, including ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, Parade Magazine, Entrepreneur.com, and HuffPo. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think there are so many valuable nuggets that Noah has to share. Unfortunately, we didn't get them all out of him today because we ran out of time, but I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. We talk about success. We talk about limiting beliefs. We talk about some of the concepts that Noah has identified in his journey working with people, and really what stops people from succeeding, whatever that means to you, to the extent that they want to. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Noah St. John. Mr. Noah St. John, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Jonathan. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm kind of living the dream, man. So
awesome.
Really excited to chat with you today and share some of your wisdom with our audience. But before we get into that, I'd love to hear in your words, when people ask, what do you do and how did you get to that point? What do you tell them?
What I do is I help people get rid of their head trash so they can make more money. I've helped my coaching clients add over $2.7 billion over the last 2 decades. And I do that by helping them master what I call inner game and outer game. Inner game is everything that happens between your ears, and outer game is everything else, everything you see on the earth. So, we've helped people add multiple 6 and 7 and even 8 figures to their business while working less. And so, that's what I do. And that's really been an amazing journey. I started many, many years ago in 1997 in my college dorm room with $800 and a book on how to do HTML. And since that time, we've had people, tens of thousands of students and clients in over 125 countries, according to Google Analytics. And so, it's really, like I said, it's been an incredible journey, and I just really I love bragging about my clients and their success and all the amazing results that people are getting as a result of using my methods.
Fantastic. So trace that path for me from, the one room with $800 and HTML book to where you are today. What did that journey look like?
Well, it actually even started before that, because I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. And I know that's a total cliche, but it's true. I grew up in a little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which happens to be one of the wealthiest communities in New England. But my family was dirt poor. So from a very young age, I was painfully exposed to the chasm between the haves and the have-nots. The haves was everyone else in the community, and the have-nots was my family. So I really hated that life of poverty and fear and lack and not enoughness. That's what I grew up with in my family. But right down the street, I saw that there was great wealth and abundance. There was another way to live. And so I really started studying when I was very young. I just went to the library and started reading books on self-help, personal growth. And I really, really tried to get them to work, but I couldn't get them to work. As hard as I tried, as hard as I studied, I just could never seem to get the results that I wanted. So at the age of 25, I decided to commit suicide because I couldn't see a way out. And at the very last moment, my life was spared. I share that story in my books. But long story short, I realized that, my life had been spared for a reason, but I didn't know why. And so I went on a spiritual journey to find why I was here on the earth. And so all of that led me to that college dorm room in 1997 when I had two epiphanies that changed my life and made me realize my purpose here on the earth. The first epiphany was when I discovered my Affirmations method, where I discovered how to change your subconscious thought patterns in less than 5 minutes a day. And the second epiphany I had was when I discovered the existence of success anorexia, a condition that causes self-sabotage and people to hold themselves back. And I discovered it in a way that no one else had ever talked about before. And so that's what really inspired me to start my company, successclinic.com. Knowing nothing about business, I didn't know anything about marketing or sales or online. There was no podcast, there was no blogs, no YouTube, no Facebook, no social media at all. It was a long time ago. And so, but I just had this dream, a deep burning desire to help people, to make a difference, to get my message out to the world, which I know, of course, a lot of your listeners have. And so, really, that's what propelled me to do what I do now. Having written 15 books that are in 18 languages, and like I said, helping people make a lot of money, but also not just money, but also to overcome addiction, quit smoking, find love, save marriages, and also save people's lives. I've had many people call me over the last, 2 decades, or, write to me on social and what have you, and say, that they read one of my books or came to one of my events or took one of my online programs and decided not to take their own life. So, it's really, really powerful, what we've been able to do. And I'm very proud of my students, my clients, and the results that they've gotten for themselves using my methods.
Incredible. And I love the piece where you talk about, I couldn't get the books to work for me, so I had to go out and find my own way. And I think a lot of people have this binge mentality with self-help. And I'm guilty of it too, by the way, where we want to read one more book. We want to learn one more lesson from one more really smart person. But at the end of the day, what's actually going to make the difference is either implementing what you learn, not accumulating more, but implementing, or figuring out your own way to succeed.
Well, you're right, because we certainly live in the world of information overload. And, as I'm sure most people listening to this program know, there are over 1 billion blogs on the internet today. So there's certainly too much information, more information we would possibly consume in 10,000 lifetimes. And so, at this point in humanity's existence, information is no longer, there's an old saying, knowledge is power. But that was when knowledge was held by the very few. Well, knowledge, or information, if you will, is now ubiquitous. It's everywhere. We're drowning in information. And so it is no longer information that is power. But what we're looking now to, what we say, at successclinic.com, at my company, we have a saying, which is there's no lack of information, but there's a definite lack of implementation. And that lack of implementation leads to a lack of results. And so that's the point, is that, one of the things that my work does is it helps people to stopping themselves from the level of success they're capable of, to what I call get their foot off the brake. And so, most people, many people, millions of people are driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake. And, you keep trying to learn from all these different people, and that's not wrong. But what I'm saying is that at the same time that most people want their goals, they are also unconsciously stopping themselves from reaching their goals. That's what my work fixes. That's what in fact, one of my clients many years ago said, Noah, your methods fix the problem that causes every other problem. And I think that's one of the reasons we've seen so many amazing results from our clients.
That's fascinating. I really want to get in and learn more, but I do want to ask, do you really believe that, what percentage, I guess, do you believe of people being held back is mindset versus, obviously there is some element of circumstance, there is some element of capability or calling, passion. How much of it do you really think is just you're putting your foot on the brake from a mindset perspective?
Well, I don't use the term mindset. I know that term is bandied about a lot, nowadays. I have never used that term mindset, because to me, mindset is subsumed by the other parts of, what I call inner game. So inner game is everything that happens between your ears. That you can't see directly, but it affects everything that you do. So, for example, at my live events, we have a live event called Freedom Lifestyle Experience where I teach people, how to master inner game and outer game. But, one of the things I'll ask at my live events or when I'm speaking to an audience, doing my keynote speech, I'll say, what area of your life do your beliefs not affect you? And of course, people will go, and I go, exactly. There's no place your beliefs don't affect you, right? Your beliefs affect your health. Your beliefs affect your wealth, your finances, your business, your career, your relationships, your marriage, everything. There's no place in the world where your beliefs don't affect you. However, you can't see a belief, right? You can only see the effects of it. And so, for example, somebody could be doing really well in their business, but maybe their health is suffering. Or, they're doing well in their relationships, but maybe their finances they're stuck, So it's not cookie cutter, one size fits all. We really have to look at the individual person. That's one of the things that we do, with our clients. But the point is that, that is, your beliefs are not just about mindset. So when people say mindset, it's like nails on a chalkboard because that term is really misused, in my opinion, nowadays, because of what I'm saying right now. It has as much to do with what you do with your beliefs. Again, I call it your inner game, but it's not just beliefs. I mean, it has also to do with, things that you can't see, like your values, your desires, your thoughts, your priorities, decisions. See, so that encompasses much, much more than mindset. But then we also have the outer game. See, we can't forget that. The outer game are things you can see directly. That's your habits, your lifestyle, your systems, your strategies. So for entrepreneurs, for example, it's all the blocking and tackling that we have to do every day as entrepreneurs, all the customer-facing, market-facing things. Your lead magnets, your sales pages, your marketing funnels, all of the digital marketing stuff that so many people have spent all this time and money and effort on. But it's only when you master your inner game and your outer game that you have the phenomenon called success. So the example that I always give is, look at the people who are rich and famous, and yet they sabotage themselves. Examples like Robin Williams, Chris Farley, River Phoenix, Heath Ledger, Elvis Presley, Marilyn Monroe. I mean, there are literally hundreds of these examples. Sadly, these are, of course, cautionary tales. But that's just one example of how we need to master both inner game and outer game.
I love that. And I think it's that old saying of if you put a Ferrari engine in a Ford Escort 1989, it's still a Ford Escort 1989, right? It's like the best knowledge in the wrong vehicle is not going to do anything. Is that what you mean when you use the term success anorexia?
Success anorexia is a condition that I discovered on October 20th, 1997, when I realized why so many smart, creative, talented people are holding themselves back from the level of success they're perfectly capable of. Now, just to tell you the brief story of how it happened, I have a background as a former professional ballet dancer. So I'm the only person in the personal and business growth industry who made a living lifting ballerinas. And so my point is that my body was not built for ballet. When I was very young, I had braces on my legs like Forrest Gump. So I took dance classes to strengthen my legs. My pediatrician, suggested to my parents that I do that. Well, I ended up becoming a professional at the age of 18. But then I had a career-ending injury at age 22. So it was a very short career, but the point is that, in that career, I met many people who unfortunately were struggling with eating disorders. Well, in October 1997, I was at a seminar on eating disorders to find out why people develop eating disorders. And what I realized is that just like people, millions of people, mostly young women, are starving themselves of food, what I realized is that millions of people are also unknowingly starving themselves of success. And I was the first person to ever realize that and put two and two together in that way. And that was really what led to the creation of my very first book called Permission to Succeed, which was published by the Chicken Soup publisher. So what I realized is that for millions of people all around the world, we don't need any more how-tos of success, because so many people, of course, have spent billions of dollars on the how to succeed methods, right? How to succeed, how to make more money, and so forth. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. However, what I realized in that moment, that flash of insight, was that at the same time that we desire success, that we have our foot on the gas trying to get towards our goal, millions of us are also unknowingly, unconsciously, unwittingly holding ourselves back from that level of success. In other words, what I call driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake. And so that deals with the subconscious reasons why we hold ourselves back. Hence, I called it success anorexia. And now we call it, in my new book is called Power Habits, the new science for making success automatic. And what I do is I show you what I now call the power habits of unconsciously successful people. Highly successful people, what I call the naturals of success, are not doing this, right? These are all the gurus out there. The gurus are who most people are learning from, going to all these seminars and so forth. And yet they're still stuck. Why? Because the person on stage is unconscious. They're unconsciously competent at allowing themselves to succeed. So that's why when we look at this phenomenon, this discovery that I had called success anorexia, that is what millions of people are unknowingly suffering from, and they're not getting the right treatment. So that's why, going back to my story of starting a company, Success Clinic in my college dorm room, that was what galvanized me to start this company and to get, the word out about this condition that no one else had ever talked about before. And, now I've written 15 books on the subject of why people hold themselves back from the level of success they're perfectly capable of. So this is really about not just how to succeed, but how to stop stopping yourself from the level of success you're capable of.
Yeah, I guess I want to make sure I understand. So is success anorexia, in your perspective, is it similar to, people talk a lot about self-talk, right? And this idea of like the words that you say to yourself in your head, between your ears, I like your term, they really matter, right? And if you're walking around every single day going, you know what, I don't deserve to make that much money, or in my case, I had a real belief around, I guess I had success anorexia around relationships, where I had a deep, deep seated belief. I didn't know it even, but when I did the work and I dug deep and I went to those unpleasant places and did the journaling, did the meditation, I realized, wait a minute, do I actually believe that I deserve a loving, healthy, happy relationship? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Yes, it is. That's exactly right. And as I stated earlier, what I'm talking about is your inner game, which affects everything that you do. So yeah, you can have success anorexia as it pertains to money, physical success, wealth, status, and so forth.
Fitness.
Because that's where, what's that?
Fitness as well. I see this all the time. Right. I have X, and therefore I can never have a body that I'll be happy with. That's right. Exactly. Because my left knee hurts sometimes, so I could never get to just 20 pounds overweight,
Well, look, the four areas that I fix, that my program fixes is, money, wealth, abundance, right? Health, relationships, and stress. Right. And notice that stress is caused by one of the other three, right? It's caused by money, health, and relationships. So really those four areas, money, health, relationships, and stress, that's what this my program's fix is all of those areas. But you can be starving yourself of success, to use my terminology. You can be starving yourself of success in any or all of those areas. So as I mentioned earlier, it's not cookie cutter, one size fits all, but it is very customized for each individual person.
Now, I'm not going to ask you, just tell me all of it, Noah, because you've written 15 books on this.
Right.
But I want to ask you for a framework that people can learn from this and get an introduction. And hopefully along the way, we discover what aforementions are, because I love that idea.
Right.
If it is what I think it is, I love it.
Yes. Well, so when I discovered success anorexia, I realized that I had discovered the problem that it was literally the moment my life made sense for the first time. Because as I mentioned, I had been reading all these books on how to succeed. And none of them were wrong. They just didn't fix my problem. My problem was I was starving myself of success. But of course, no one had ever said that before, right? There was no language for that. So it's when you have a new way of looking at the universe, you often need a new word or a new term to describe it. So that's why when I discovered, oh my gosh, this is what's holding me back, I realized I had to come up with this term, and I named it success anorexia because that was the perfect name.
Yeah. I like the metaphor as well, right? Because if someone is anorexic and they're not eating, you can put the most nutritious food in front of them, right? You could have read the best books, and I don't think either of us have anything against books, right? It's like that's the nutrition, right? Learning and new things. But I could put the best books in front of you if you don't believe that you deserve or that you're capable of what those books contain. I think that's really interesting. And it's something I work with my certified coaches to tell them, a lot of times people are going to buy our courses and our programs, but they're going to believe that something's wrong with them or wrong with their memory, wrong with their brain. And your job as a coach is to convince them you can do this and you deserve to be able to do this and you will do this, because otherwise they would have gone through the course and figured it out themselves, right? They wouldn't have needed a coach or as you put it, a guru.
Right. Absolutely. And so when I had that discovery, that epiphany, I literally said, oh my gosh, this is exactly the problem that I'm facing. And I knew I wasn't alone in this. I mean, Emerson said what is most personal is most universal. So I knew I certainly wasn't the only person. I knew there had to be tens of millions of people just like me. And it turns out I was exactly right. Now, so then the next thing I did, though, was when I sat down to write my first book, Permission to Succeed, I said, okay, well, now I got to fix the problem, right? It's one thing to know you got a problem. It's another to say, well, now how do I fix it, right? And so that's the point, is I had to come up with this a solution, right? A methodology, a formula, a system, a blueprint in order to fix this problem, that I had identified. And so it became my first book called Permission to Succeed. Now through, many iterations, as I mentioned, 15 books. Now my 15th book called Power Habits, we now call it the Power Habits. The full title of my system is the Power Habits of Unconsciously Successful People. Now, I know that's a mouthful, but let me just break that down for your listeners very simply, because when we humans want to master a new habit, right? Whenever we're trying to master a new habit or a new skill, we always go through 4 stages of competency. The first stage is unconscious incompetence. That means you don't know you don't know. Mm-hmm. The second stage is conscious incompetence. That means you don't know. The third stage is conscious competence, which is you know. And the final stage is unconscious competence, which is you do without thinking. So the example I always give at my live events or when I'm doing keynote speeches is driving a car, right? Yep. So for probably most people listening to this program, you went through these 4 stages when you were learning how to drive a car. The first stage was you didn't know how to drive a car. Nobody comes out of the womb and says, hey, where's my car? Right? The second stage is you get to about 8, 10, 12 years old and you're like, man, I want to get away from my parents. How the heck? But I only got a bicycle. Oh man, I really want to know how to drive a car, but shoot, I can't drive a car. Now I know I don't know how to drive a car. Then you get to the third stage, which is you learn how to drive a car. You go to driver's ed, get a license. And then of course, now today, for most people listening to this program, you do without thinking. You're driving a car and you are literally not thinking about it. You do without thinking. So literally there's dozens of things we do every day that you went through these 4 stages: eating, sleeping, reading, writing, speaking, getting dressed, bathing, and so forth and so on, right? Yep. So the point is that what I realized, Jonathan, is that these highly successful people, the gurus, what I call the naturals of success, have become unconsciously competent at allowing themselves to succeed. What that means is they are not holding themselves back from success. Now, I've had the opportunity to interview over 200 millionaires, multimillionaires, very, very successful people, the biggest names in the industry. And what I realized is that these people, by and large, are unconsciously competent. I can prove that because I will ask them a question. Like I'll say, have you ever noticed that you do such and such, that you do this and so? And they'll pause for a second and they'll go, yeah, you're right. I do that. I never thought about that before. Well, hello, what does that tell you? It tells you they're unconscious, right? They're literally unconsciously competent. Well, that's the very point. This is precisely why people come to my events or hire me as a coach after they've gone to all the gurus and they're still stuck, because the gurus aren't saying anything wrong necessarily, but they're also unconscious. So it's like they left out all the good stuff. It's like they're giving you a pizza without the cheese and the toppings. Yeah. And they're like, well,
I completely agree. And I recognize this also in myself, I'll admit. Like when I first started teaching about learning and memory, I was at that point where like, hey, all my life I struggled. I didn't know how to do this. Someone just told me the secret and I got taught it. But as I've become consciously or unconsciously competent, I no longer even remember what it's like to have memory issues. Like, it's a good thing I wrote my books and courses and all that other stuff back then. Cause today, if you ask me, like, what do you do when you struggle? It's like, I don't remember what it's like to not remember something that I wanted to remember.
Right.
You know, and that, I mean, that's why we train coaches and we train them in how to channel into that. But you're absolutely right. And so, you know, it's a very select few people who have been able to push through that, like yourself, and do the work to go, okay, I see what I don't see. When you see someone like Tony Robbins, who's been confident for the last 30 years, you know what I mean? He's done the work to go in, and he understands enough about where people are, even though he doesn't even remember what it's like to suffer from depression, I think.
Well, that's a great example. And it's more like 50 years, by the way. But anyway, I mean, it's, you know, that is a great example because, you know, people come to my events after going to all these gurus and they're like, how come I spent all this money and I'm still stuck? And it's like, well, because they left out all the good stuff. They didn't teach anything wrong necessarily. But, you know, they're basically saying things like, well, set your goals, think positive, believe in yourself. And you're like, yeah, okay. You know, like that.
Those are the right thing to do, but that's not, you know, yeah.
Right, right. You know, and because like I'd hear all these gurus, I go on all these seminars. I went to all the same ones everybody else does. And, you know, like that was one of my favorite ones. They'd say, well, the secret to success is you got to believe in yourself. And I'd be sitting in the back going, yeah, but I don't believe in myself. What am I supposed to do? You know? And that's the point. Millions of people don't believe in themselves because, I mean, it's really common to not believe in yourself. It's very uncommon to believe in yourself, you see, and you see what I mean. So that's just one example. They're not saying anything that's precisely wrong. It's just they missed the point. And that's why, you know, it took the nerdiest nerd in the industry, that would be me, to break it down to the molecular level and go, oh, here's what they were trying to say, but they left it out.
Tell me how.
Right. Exactly. Well, I mean, it actually is very simple. The answer is that you have to have someone believe in you. What I realized is that they're not saying anything wrong. They just did it backwards because the actual secret is you have to have someone believe in you first. Going back to what I said a moment ago, that I've interviewed all these highly successful people, in 100% of the cases, when I would ask them, did you have someone believe in you, you know, a long time ago, and every single one, oh yeah, you know, my mother believed in me, my dad believed in me, my grandpa, you know, or a teacher or whatever. 100% of the time they had someone believe in them first. And so ironically, that is the secret to believe in yourself, is you need someone else to believe in you first. That became one of the power habits that I teach, is to find people who believe in you first. It sounds counterintuitive, but if you really think about it, you know, anybody out there who may be struggling with believing in yourself, you realize you actually can't do that. And so unless you have that person believe in you first, and I have, you know, 2 decades of proof of that, but, you know, that's just one simple example, but it's a very, very powerful example of, you know, what they— It makes
so much sense. It makes so much sense, Noah, because, you know, if you're in a place where the whole world around you has communicated to you that you're not of value, how are you supposed to believe that you're of value? And I think, by the way, the other way is true, right? Is, you know, once you do have people that believe in you, I realized when I was 15, I was coming out of a really, really serious depression, self-hatred for many, many years. And I had many people around me. I had loving parents, loving mentors, I didn't have many loving friends, but I had the loving parents and loving mentors. And I came up with this saying one day, which is, you know, Jonathan, if you don't think you're worth anything, why will anyone else? Mm-hmm. And so it was once my kind of, I don't know what term you use, but I would just say like my rocks, the people that in Hebrew we say like my thing that I can lean on. There's a nice word for it, mishenet. Like once I had my solid ground to stand on, then I had to take that step and go, you know what, I am worth something. And it wasn't until I believed that I was worth a damn that other people besides my mother started believing that I was worth a damn as well.
Well, that's a great example, and yeah, that's it's really, really important to look beyond the cliches, you know, because as I said, you know, the cliches have a grain of truth, but there's a big difference between a grain of truth and the whole truth, right? And that's the point, is, you know, that's one of the reasons why so many people are spending billions of dollars on, you know, these gurus, these seminars, but they're just not getting better. So, you know, that's why I'm on a mission, really, to help people who have been left behind. by a lot of these, I guess, cliches or the things that just aren't quite right. They're not wrong, but they're not exactly right either.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's fantastic. Tell me a little bit more. I mean, what are some of these other incredible habits that go against the cliched advice?
Well, that goes back to your question earlier about my affirmations method. So that is, really the foundational power habit of unconsciously successful people. It's what unconsciously successful people are doing unconsciously that they could never teach you. But this is one of the foundational power habits is my discovery of affirmation. So, of course, everyone listening to this program knows what an affirmation is, right? An affirmation is what we've been taught for decades. It's a statement of something you want to be true. Like at my live events or at my keynote speeches, I like to have my audience stand up and say, okay, we're going to do a traditional affirmation. Ready? Everybody say, I am rich. And everybody goes, I am rich. And you know what happens next? Everybody starts laughing. And I go, well, what are you laughing at? And they say, well, I'm not rich. And I say, but yet you just said you were. And they go, yeah, but I don't believe it. Aha. See, that's the point, right? We say these statements just like we've been taught, but we don't believe it, right? For millions of people, millions of us. And so this is what happened to me. I'd read every book, for 20 years, and I did everything they said. I wrote it on the wall, and put stickers on my wall. I'm happy, I'm rich, I'm successful. No, I'm not. I'm broke, I'm miserable, and unhappy, right? So it's like, well, what the heck, I'm following your instructions. Why isn't this damn thing working? So one morning, it was April 1997. I was in the shower thinking about all this, right? You ever have those shower moments?
All the time.
Right. So, in my books, I call it the shower that changed everything. The shower that changed everything. Because in this particular shower, I was thinking about this very point of why I've been doing these stupid affirmations for years and they never worked for me. And I said, well, what are we talking? We're talking about beliefs. But what's a belief? Well, a belief is just a thought. Well, what's thought? Thought is the process of asking and searching for answers to questions, not statements. So I said, well, wait a minute. If the human mind is automatically searching for answers to questions, why are we going around making statements we don't believe? Why don't we cut out the middleman? And I said, I don't know. What would that look like? Well, let's see. Let's take the statement or affirmation, I am rich, to which your brain replies, yeah, right. In my programs and my books, I call it the yeah, right response, because that's literally what your brain does. Your brain goes, yeah, right. So I said, well, if that's the statement, what would the question be? And then I said, why am I so rich? Why am I so rich? Now, when you ask that question, what starts to happen in your brain? You start to search for the answer, right?
Human brain can't resist a good question. We teach it in our learning courses.
That's right. Well, it's called the embedded presupposition factor of the brain. And so the point is, I said, now, wait a second. Because what we're talking about is the law of sowing and reaping. As you sow, so shall you reap. But what are we sowing? We're sowing seeds of thought. Yet what are most people doing? Sowing lousy thought seeds. Why am I so stupid? Why am I so fat? Why can't I lose weight? Why isn't my business growing? Why is there more month left at the end of the money? When you ask lousy questions, what do you get? You get lousy answers, right? And that creates a lousy life. So I said, well, wait a second. What if instead of asking lousy questions that lead to lousy answers and create a lousy life, what if we just flip the whole thing on its head, start asking empowering questions that lead to phenomenal answers and create a wonderful life? And as I was standing there in the shower, April 1997, I said, holy cow, I think I just invented something. And so I had to give it a name. And the name that I gave it was Affirmations, Affirmations, Affirmations. And you, of course, can go to affirmations.com and learn more about my affirmations method. But really, that's really the foundational power habit, because what I realize is that what highly successful people, what the naturals are doing is they're unconsciously asking these empowering questions. Why am I good enough? Why am I so happy? Why am I so smart? But they don't even know they're doing it, so they can't teach you. So that's why when I discovered affirmations and named that process and created the method, I realized, holy cow, now the rest of us can do it. And that's what's so exciting is when you see people, learn my affirmations method and start doing the work and taking the actions, and they start to make more money. They start to grow their business or write their book or quit smoking, overcome addiction, find love. It's just absolutely incredible. And, you can go onto our websites and just see just a fraction of the amazing stories and true life stories that we have over the last 2 decades.
No, what do you think was different about you that allowed you to kind of bring this to the surface and teach it?
I've always been a nerd. when I started reading before I was 2 years old. My mother was a teacher, and so I just love books. I read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People when I was 7 years old. I know that doesn't sound believable, but you can ask my mother. I read that book when I was 7. And so I've just always been fascinated by human behavior. And I was also very annoyed by the fact that even though I was studying all this stuff, wasn't getting the results in my life. I mentioned, my suicide story. I mean, I wasn't suicidal. I went to do it. So, I remember that very, very distinctly, that I was going to take my own life. So, the dichotomy of that, of how much I had tried to succeed and how much of a failure I was, that is, I think, what really propels me even to this day, because I know how hard people work. I know that human beings want success, but yet at the same time, we desire success. We also fear success. And so that is the eternal struggle, within many millions and millions of people. So that's what I believe that I was put here on the earth to do, is to teach people about this and to say it's okay, don't beat yourself up. But here is a process, here's a methodology, here's a blueprint, here's a step-by-step method that you can use so you can stop stopping yourself from success. And, it's just very, very humbling to get letters and, people posting on social. I had an email the other day from a client who said that he'd been trying to quit smoking and caffeine and, marijuana for 17 years. And within 2 weeks of, using my program, he quit all of his addiction within 2 weeks. So, I mean, just stories like that are really, really incredible. I mean, along with the people who went from making $5,000 a month to $75,000 a month, people who went from $60,000 in debt to a six-figure income in less than a year. And, that's what makes it so worthwhile, so fulfilling, and makes me just, keep going every day.
Fantastic. Now, I know we've pretty much come up on time here. Anything else you want to share about the method that we didn't cover that maybe you want people to understand, or should they just refer to one of the 15 books?
Well, yes. You can go to our main website, noahstjohn.com. That's my name, noahstjohn.com. Or, as I mentioned, affirmations.com. To learn about my affirmations method and get my affirmation system. And of course, at noahstjohn.com, you can also learn about our live events and our coaching and our online programs, as well as all the different books and DVDs. But yeah, we have just a number of resources to help people. And I just want to make sure that people know that there is hope, there is help, and that they don't have to struggle alone anymore.
Fantastic. Now, before I let you go, I do want to ask, any other things that you do, any hacks that you have that keep you performing at a higher level besides the inner game and outer game stuff?
No, because that's everything.
That's everything, huh?
Inner game and outer game, that's pretty much life. So the affirmations definitely, can help keep you sharp. But there are 11 there are 11 total power habits. So in addition to affirmations, there are 10 other power habits. But really, it's a daily practice. Habits are, they're never any fun to, nobody wants to change. Nobody wants and says, oh, goody, I get to change. No, we humans like to stay just the way we are. But what I would just say to the people listening is, if you're not happy with the results you're getting, if you want to have more money or more time or, better relationships or better health, I mean, there is a solution. Power habits, another one of my clients called it duct tape because, my system says it's like duct tape because it fixes everything.
Fantastic. Well, Noah St. John, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I had a total blast. I know our audience learned a whole bunch as well.
My pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to the award-winning Superhuman Academy podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit superhuman.blog. While you're at it, please take a moment to share this episode with a friend and leave us a review on iTunes. We'll see you next week.